Hey class, today we're going to continue our studying of rotations. Okay, so we're going to start off with some definitions. A rotation turns a figure around a fixed point called the center of rotation. For example, the center of rotation will be at the origin, and we'll rotate around the origin in increments of 90 degrees. Now, it is possible to rotate different degrees. We could rotate 5 degrees or 20 degrees, but for right now, we're just going to focus on quarter turns, okay? So 90 degrees at a time, okay? Now, figures can be rotated either clockwise or counterclockwise. Now, even if you are not super good at telling the time on an old school clock, you know which direction the hands turn, hopefully. Otherwise, we're going to learn that right now together. Okay? On a clock, clockwise is in this direction. Okay, if I had a clock right here, the hands would be turning in this direction. This is clockwise. Which means that if it is going in the other direction, okay, here's the hands of my clock, if they were moving backwards, this would be counterclockwise, okay, so that's backwards. All right, now when we look at turning in both directions, something interesting happens. If we start at pre-image A and rotate in this direction, clockwise, that is a 90-degree turn. However, if we were to turn the other direction, counterclockwise, that would be a 90, 180, 270. Okay, so to go from here to here, we can either move 90 degrees clockwise, or we can move 270 degrees counterclockwise. Either way, we're going to end up in the same position. So you'll notice the math rules are going to be the same for those two movements. Okay? Now this one right here is going to be, if I start right here at pre-image B and go this way, now if I'm going to go clockwise, the same way a clock would go, this would be a 270-degree turn. However, if I go counterclockwise, that is a 90-degree turn. Now, our last example right here, if we start at pre-image C and rotate until we get to C prime, no matter which way we go, that's going to be a 180-degree turn. So we go 180 degrees this way. We also go 180 degrees this way, so it's kind of the same. Which makes sense, because 180 degrees is a half turn. Okay, so let's take a look at this rotation right here. We've gone from ABC to A prime, B prime, C prime. And we're going to answer some questions. First, it was rotated how many degrees clockwise? Okay, so if we start right here, it went a quarter turn clockwise, so that is 90 degrees. Or, if we went the other way, it'd be 90, 180, 270. Okay, so we're talking about, just like in example 1, those match. All right, let's go ahead and complete the table. We're going to be filling in these coordinate points and looking for a pattern. So let's find points A, B, C. Point A is at 2, 3. Point B is at 5, 8. And point C is at 6, 1. Okay, so there is our pre-image. Now we want B primes. All right, so let's start with A prime. A prime is at 3, -2. B prime is at 8, -5. And C prime is at 1, -6. Now, let's look at the pattern, because we're supposed to describe what happened to the values. Okay, so describe means words. So let's just take our first example right here, A and A prime. What happened? We had 2, 3, and it changed to 3, -2. Huh. Well, it looks like the X and Y traded places. You see the 3 and the 2 traded? Interesting. X and Y traded places. But not just that. The X value is now opposite. It was positive, and now it's negative. Okay, so I'm going to write that down. The X value is opposite. I know I'm not writing in full sentences. I'm kind of writing in notes shorthand. All right, so that's words. What happened? Now, how would we write that algebraically? You may remember this from yesterday, but what we would do is we would take X and Y, and we would show that they traded places by actually putting them in backwards, Y, X. That shows me that the X and the Y, the 2 and the 3, traded places. Now we also need to show that the X value went from a positive to a negative. It was now the opposite. So we'll use again the negative sign to show that this is the opposite. Okay, so that is our rule, written out in words and written out in algebraic form. Now let's look at another one. Number 5, we have this rotation, and it looks like we went from this pre-image to this image. Looks like we went 180 degrees in either direction. So we're going to be discovering what kind of a rule we can follow when we're doing a 180-degree turn. Okay, so let's go ahead and write all of the points down, A, B, C, for the pre-image. A is at 2, 3, 2, 3. B is at 5, 8. And C is at 6, 1. Here, put some parentheses in there just in case that's bugging you, sorry. Now we're going to look at the image. After it's been rotated, A prime is located right there at -2, -3. B prime is right there, located at -5, -8. C prime is right there, located at -6, -1. Now, take a look at what happened to all of our numbers. And let's see if we can describe what is happening. Well, the 2, 3 is now a -2, -3. So all that happened was the x's and the y's are opposites. So to show that, we would say if we started with a normal xy, we want to do the opposite. So we would opposite the x and opposite the y. They don't change places. The x and y's are still in the same order. See the 2, 3, 2, 3, 5, 8, 5, 8. All that happened was the positives have now become negatives. And if the opposite were to happen, if they started negative, they would become positive. Okay, there's one more rule to look at. So let's take a look at 6, we have our pre-image right here, and it has been rotated. Let's see here. If I go clockwise, that's 90, 180, 270. That's a 270 clockwise or a 90 counterclockwise. Let's look at what happens with those points. So we have points A, B, and C. Point A is at 2, 3. Point B is at 5, 8. And point C is at 6, 1. Now let's go ahead and look at the image after it has been rotated. So we have A prime, B prime, and C prime. A prime is right there, and it's at -3, 2. B prime is right there. It's at -8, 5. C prime is right there at -1, 6. So for this rule, I'm looking at the numbers, and it looks like they've traded places again. Okay, so I'm going to write some words over here. Okay, X and Y traded places again. And what else happened? It looks like what used to be the Y value, the 3, has become a -3. So the Y value is opposite. Well, this might feel kind of similar, but backwards to what we did before. Remember when the X value was opposite? Now, the Y value is opposite. Okay. Let's go ahead and write that down algebraically. If we started with a regular X and Y, it would turn into, they would trade places, and the Y would become opposite. Now these rules work every time. We can always draw them out if that helps, but we can also use the algebraic rules to be more precise than our own artistic drawing could be. Okay, we have a few other questions to answer here. Number 7 asks us what would happen if a figure was rotated 360 degrees. Interesting. Well, isn't 360 degrees an entire circle? So if something was rotated all the way around, it would be back to its original position. Okay? So it would look like no change. And algebraically, we'd say xy is still xy. It is going to be exactly the same. Let's look at number 8. Point G, -3, 9, was rotated clockwise to G prime. So it looks like we have to decide which rule happened. Okay? We have to decide how many degrees. So the x's and y's were traded places, and the -3 became a +3. So the x value has become the opposite. Which rule does that match? Oh, it matches this one, which is a 90-degree clockwise and a 270 degrees counterclockwise. They're asking us the degrees clockwise, so I'm going to say 90 degrees. Number 9. This point was rotated counterclockwise to be this point. We have to decide how many degrees again. So I'm going to look at the points. It looks like x and y's are backwards. And this time the y value, 8, is now the opposite. Okay, so now I know I'm talking about this rule right here. So how many degrees was this rule counterclockwise? Was 90 degrees counterclockwise. All right, now we're going to go ahead and cross off these, and you can glue these in your notes and get to the practice. Good luck!